get to introducing Tarun. Tarun Oblum is the founder of the shoe label Oblum, known for its hand-welded leather shoes. Tarun was inspired by his art teacher for introducing him to the world of creativity. He has a diploma in leather technology from Milan in Italy. Following that, Tarun studied footwear design and development at the London School of Fashion. After returning to India, Tarun founded the luxury footwear brand Oblum. So that's about Tarun. A brief about the format. It'll be a conversation, like I said. It'll be very interactive. If you have a question, please raise your hand or you can type it in the chat box. And as and when your question sort of fits into the flow of the conversation, we'll pick it up. So we don't have to wait till the end of the webinar to answer your questions. Is that fine, Megha?
Yeah, that totally works. Yeah.
Okay. So with that introduction, I introduce Tarun. Hey, Tarun, how are you?
Hi, good evening to everyone on this lovely video webinar, the first of its sorts that I've done in a while. I hope everyone's keeping safe, first of all. Feel like the third wave is suddenly hit everyone, and yeah, just hoping everyone's safe. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's great, to do this with T-Works. I still remember when we first started our first interaction or had our first interaction in 2018, we were also just starting off. We were quite small then. We had a little store down the road, 120 square feet. But I don't know what y'all saw in me, but thank you so much for that. I think because people like y'all, like T-Works, finds people like us interesting or our craft interesting, it pushes us to be something else. And we've been constantly pushing ourselves to be where we are, and yeah, it's great. This is a good way to start this lovely interview or conversation.
Yeah, man. So what I was thinking, Tarun, was before we get into your journey and how you came to where you are, shall we talk about where you currently are? What do you do? You can show us a few of your best work so that people get an idea of what you do and how much, maybe what goes into it.
Sure. So basically, just to give everyone an idea behind what Oblum is, so basically the idea was to create a product, the product being the shoe, a more experiential product. I wanted people to be a part of the making process, and which is why the craft adds into the brand. Now, what we do is we do very traditionally handcrafted shoes, quite like the one that I'm holding up right now. This was recently made. The difference between what we do and the shoes that you probably find in the market is that all of our shoes are entirely made by hand. They're made in the most traditional way of shoemaking. So I picked up the craft in England, where shoemaking is still prevalent as a craft. And what we do is we make all of our shoes in-house to the customer's requirement, using the best of material and shoemaking techniques, using tools that have been passed down through generations and craft that has been passed down through generation. So ideally, all of our shoes that we make mean more than a shoe to the customer, right? The idea is to create a product that has a little more emotional value than a shoe that you would just buy off from the market. That's because we provide service, and there's a constant conversation with the customer even after the sale is done. So once you buy a shoe through us, firstly, we make it according to your requirement, but then we also provide service and care for that shoe. So it's not a one-time transaction, it's more of an experiential product where customers keep coming back to us, and there's that interaction. We keep the conversation alive through the product. Now, where we are is we're in my little not so little showroom come workshop space. That's where we meet our customers. That's where we do our fittings. You can see all of the shoes that are right behind me. These are what we use for our fittings. And then we have some more shoes on display there. So ideally, when a customer walks through the store, we start off by getting to know the customer, the kind of person that he is or she is. And then we start off with the conversation to know what they want before we get into the actual product itself. So yeah.
When it comes to the process, you just showed, you held up a shoe. When it comes to the process, can you tell us a bit about what is the process in terms of making a shoe?
Sure.
Maybe you can delve into some technical parts. The reason I asked that is that shoe doesn't, I mean, I didn't find any cuts in the front. Generally, you have a front portion, a side portion. I don't know much about shoes.
So that's actually the right way. I mean, it's called a hole cut Oxford. It's basically seamless in the fact that it only has one seam in the back. And this is not an easy shoe to make for anyone, to be very honest. It's one of the more complicated shoes to make, but we've gotten to a level where we can effectively make a shoe that's this good looking, because I think this is a really good looking shoe. And it's also a shoe that's going to last a really long time. Now, when it comes to the process, right, the difference between what a shoe that you get in the market to what we do is a shoe in the market. What they do is it's all made in a factory. They get 3-4 individual parts from 3 different factories, put them together, stick them together, and you have a shoe. That shoe is not going to last you a very long time. It's not made of a very high quality leather because it doesn't have to last that long. So what we do, on the other hand, is called a hand welted shoe. So hand welting shoes basically is a traditional way of making shoes where everything is stitched together instead of them being stuck together. What happens when we stitch together? So basically when you see a stitch like this on the shoe, it's very functional. What happens with that process is if your sole or your heel ever wears off, I can take apart all of this for the customer and then put a brand new sole and a heel, and the original leather goes back onto the original mold that the shoe was made on. So ideally, the kind of processes that we use lets that shoe last at least about 10 to 15 years minimum, if taken care of. And if the customer can't take care of the product, we are here as a workshop cum studio to take care of that shoe for the customer. So that's what I tried to say in the earlier question as well. It's never a one-time sale. We try to keep that conversation alive, because more than anything, for us, it's not just the product, it's more about the craft. And through the craft, we're keeping the product alive. That's essentially what we're doing right now.
You spoke about the leather. Do you source your leather from somewhere in Hyderabad, somewhere in India, or do you source your leather from somewhere else, and why do you do that?
Lovely. I mean, that's a great question. I also see 2 questions in the chat which relate to your question. One is, do you make the shoes yourself? And the second one being, can we go for an eco-friendly leather rather than animal processed leather for sustainability? There's 2 different points. Well, I learned how to make shoes by myself, but if I were to make every shoe, I would only be able to make about 30 to 40 pairs of shoes in a year, which isn't very sustainable for me as a person to live my own life. So what we do is we have a team of about 7 craftsmen. Everyone belongs to a separate department. But even that being said, we only make about 50 to 70 pairs of shoes maximum in a month. So we do not try to overproduce, because we cannot even overproduce. We do not use very minimal machinery. Everything is done by hand. And the reason why I wanted to cap it off at about 70 shoes is so that we could focus on quality and the construction on every pair of shoe that leaves the workshop, instead of diluting the quality of construction. Now, coming to the material that we use. So yes, tanneries in India, some of them are very shady. So yes, I do import all of my leather from either Argentina or Italy. Italian leather tends to be much more expensive. Argentinian leather is also expensive, but slightly lesser than the Italian leather. Both of them are processed well. So all the companies that we buy from are ISO certified. So you can trace back the leather from where it comes from.
What does it mean when you say trace back the leather from where it comes from?
See, so for example, like in India, cow slaughter is banned, but it's still practiced. So when someone comes and asks me what the leather is, and I say it's cow or buffalo, they'll ask me that immediate question saying it's banned. So how are you able to get that leather? Whereas if I buy my leather from a European country where that kind of meat is consumed, you know that this is a byproduct of the meat industry. So that's essentially what it is. Now, secondly, with that other question in regards to sustainability and can we use any other material instead of leather? So everyone's been riding that wave, the whole sustainable wave, which is good. That creates a community that tends to be more sustainable. I would like to answer that question in two different ways. Firstly, I do not believe all material that is not leather, that is being sold as an alternative to leather, is better than leather in the first place. So what they've been doing is they've been rebranding Rexine and calling it for leather. But Rexine is also terrible because it is also synthetic at the same time. The reason why I would say my product or what we make is sustainable is because you can resole this shoe so many more times than a shoe that you would be buying from a regular shoe store. You come back to me in 4 years, the sole is gone, the heel's gone. I can resole the shoe. So the shoe actually lasts you much longer than any other shoe that is either made using fabric or any other sustainable material. So essentially, that's how I would say any hand welted shoe will last you much longer, is a lot more sustainable in terms of a product.
And what you're saying is, in from where you import your leather, it's sort of a byproduct of another industry. So it's not an animal that is killed for its hide to make leather, kind of a thing.
It's not. Very honestly, it's not. It is a byproduct of the meat industry. And I can tell that because I know a lot of people question me, and it's become a lot more prevalent in the recent times, which is why I decided not to source from a lot of Indian tanneries, because firstly, in an Indian tannery, you're expected to buy a large quantity, which we do not need because we're only using that much quantity every month. So for example, like a tannery, they tan leather in drums, and the starting drum size in an Indian tannery is about 750 square feet, and it can go up to thousands of square feet. And what I can say is I use 750 square feet in probably 5 or 6 months, whereas an Indian factory that's producing shoes probably uses about thousands of square feet in one single day. So that's how I would say we are more sustainable. And every product, all the leather that we buy at the highest quality also.
Very interesting. There are a few questions. I'm just seeing if they are relevant now. One question is about the team. You mentioned your team. You have 7 artists,
right?
And you also, in our previous, when we were talking about this yesterday, you mentioned about the other folks. You have a manager and you have someone who handles your business. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. So we're a small but happy team of people working together. We have 7 craftsmen, and yes, they are all traditionally leather craftsmen and shoemakers. Their fathers were shoemakers, their grandfathers were shoemakers, and they all hail from Agra. Agra was a shoemaking hub. It was also a British garrison. So the British actually came to India and taught these guys how to use leather and turn that leather into shoes. They were already making products out of leather in Agra before the British came to India. But the British actually taught them the craft of shoemaking to suit their own requirements. So that's how it started, and it's been it's been passed down through generations. So all the craftsmen that I currently have are 3rd generation craftsmen. I'm a 1st generation craftsman. I come from a family of engineers. I am a leather craftsman, but when we make a shoe, there is a lot of engineering that goes into this. So I still consider myself an engineer. My manager did not really have any idea about this craft. He came to work for me when he met my karigars on their way back to Agra on a train. He spoke to them. He found out that something like this was happening. And he personally called me, and I spoke to him, and he showed interest. So anyone who shows interest is welcome to join my team. So he came down to Hyderabad from Maharashtra, but unfortunately, right then there was COVID, the first wave. He left, but then he left and joined college right after to learn how to make shoes. And exactly a year later, he calls me and he's like, "Sir, I've learned how to make shoes, and I've also learned English in 1 year." Came back with so much ambition. So he handles and manages Oblum for me right now, while I work on the R&D and other important aspects.
Nice. And you have your family supporting you as well.
Yes. I also have my wife. My lovely wife is also part of the team. She's in fact right here, if you would just like pop by. So she handles all the clients and client meetings and things like that, while I handle all the production. That's Nirmala, my wife. She's been in the business for the last year and a half now. But the business has improved because of her being a part of the business. I'll be very honest, and my entire team.
Is that because now we are slowly getting into the business side of things, right? But
Right.
just before that, just to talk a bit more about shoemaking in India,
Right.
one question is, shoemaking, was it a traditional craft in India?
Right.
And do you face any hurdles in your business if it wasn't a traditional craft? Okay, that's my first question.
So very honestly, shoemaking is not a traditional craft to India. Maybe not to the south, maybe a little more to the north. Shoes are worn in places where it's slightly colder to cover yourself, to give you warmth. So the difference in between shoemaking in India is in the north, you still have traditional shoes that cover your entire foot like a mojri, which is a Rajasthani or a North Indian style of shoe. Then you have something called the Peshawari, which comes from Peshawar in Pakistan, which is like a sandal, but almost like a shoe. It's right in between a sandal and a shoe. But when you come to the south of India, right, it's traditionally sandals and open-toed shoes because it gets really hot in the south. So there is a difference. That is why you don't find a lot of shoemakers from the south. Most of the shoemakers come from the north of India. But yes, as times have changed and society has gotten more formal in terms of the way they have to dress, shoemaking became a thing that was spread across India. In fact, across India, there were a lot of shoemakers back in the day. Like the Calcutta and West Bengal, it was mostly Chinese shoemakers. So a lot of Chinese settlements in Kolkata, sorry. In the north of India, it's traditionally Agra, shoemakers from Agra or Bihar. But all these guys eventually came down to the south of India as well. Like, for example, when like the Deccan was formed or Golconda, and then Hyderabad was formed right after that, the Nizam also had his own shoemakers in Hyderabad. But eventually, as time has passed by, shoemaking as a craft has declined because factories have taken precedence because you can make more shoes.
How many shoemakers do you know in India? Personally know?
There seems to be is the lag all right?
Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
So there are
I was asking.
yeah. So there are a lot of shoemakers.
Sorry, go ahead.
There are a lot of shoemakers, but when I say shoemakers, I'm talking about individual craftsmen. And most of these guys are based out of like places like Agra and Kanpur. But if you're looking at shoemaking houses that traditionally make shoes the way we make our shoes, there are about say 4 or 5 that I know of that do it at a good quality. We have one. Also, I'm very open about all these other brands because the more they are, the better is for everyone. So there's one brand from Agra called Toramale. They make really good shoes. There's one called Qvero based out of Pune. They also make really good shoes. But other than these 2-3 brands, Bridlin is mostly factory-made shoes. They're not traditionally handmade shoes. So other than these, there are not too many, but I have seen a big surge in the recent past when it comes to new shoemaking brands and new brands that are making quality shoes.
So when I was reading about bespoke shoemakers like you, I think there are probably a few hundred across the world, I guess, who are doing it themselves, and that's a lot for you. But I guess for someone like me who doesn't know a lot about shoemaking, I remember yesterday when you told me there are a lot, I thought maybe there are a few million bespoke shoemakers, but then you told me there are probably about 500.
Right.
And you've decided to enter an industry where you have very low competition, but it's a very tough craft itself.
It is a very tough craft. I mean, it's something that has to be practiced a lot to improve because every day is a lot of R&D. It's not a product that you sit and work on for an entire day and then you have a product by the end of it which you can mass produce and sell to everyone. Every individual style of shoe is different, and every individual style of shoe requires a different level of craft and skill. There are almost 150 to 180 different individual processes in the making of every shoe. So for someone to master every process, it's going to take years. And which is why you don't have too many people doing it this way. And yes, there are not too many in the world doing traditional shoemaking, but I have definitely again seen a surge even in traditional shoemaking in the recent past. I think everyone wants to do something creative nowadays. They're so sick and fed up of being a part of a system that's your 9 10 typical 9 to 5, where you're not using your creative brain. A lot of interesting shoemakers from Japan, a lot of interesting shoemakers from the UK, some from a lot in the European part of the world, very honestly. But that's also because maybe it's a traditional craft to that continent, or even America for that matter. But it is definitely, I see a lot of change. I've also seen the change in demographics when it comes to customers who come to us. And that change is happening because there's a lot more knowledge being circulated through shoemakers and through customers who encourage people like me and the craft. So yeah, it's good times for sure.
Can you tell us a bit about how you recruited your karigars, the artisans from Agra, you being from Hyderabad,
Right.
going to Agra, and what difficulties you might have faced?
Yes. So initially, when we first started, I actually looked around in Hyderabad itself. We have Chatta Bazaar. Chatta Bazaar is like this ancient market based out of Charminar, very close to the Madina building, where traditionally most leathers and items related to leatherwork is sold. Um, so that was my first place that I visited, because every city in any part of India, if you Google enough, you'll be able to find a leather market. You go to that leather market and you ask questions around, and they're happy to help, very honestly, because all business is good business for them. So we went and looked for shoemakers around Hyderabad, but it was all a dying craft. Nobody was willing to come and help us. There were no craftsmen making the kind of shoes that I wanted them to make here. So then my mom actually also does like design work. She does interiors and stuff. So all of her craftsmen are also from UP and that side. So we slowly started asking these people and they tried to help us. So what I did was I actually took a train to Agra with all my books from college, which had like all the tools and basically all the information that I had. And then we went there, put ourselves in a hotel room for about a week and a half, and just started talking to all the people in the local market over there. The local shoemaking market in Agra is definitely much bigger than the local shoemaking market here in Hyderabad. It's almost about 2 3 kilometers. So you can just talk to people. So that's how we found our initial batch of first karigars and got them down to Hyderabad. They only lasted for about 2 weeks because I didn't have a working workshop. I mean, I had like some tools, I had some knowledge, but I didn't have a working workshop with any machines or anything for them. So every day they would ask me for that specific tool or a specific material, and then I will get on my Royal Enfield, go around town looking for that material, Googling that, because also our Hindi is very different to the UP Hindi. So even trying to understand them was a challenge initially. But what we have done, Anand, very honestly, to make sure that these guys stay back, because initially we had a lot of trouble for the first 1 year. But then after that, what we decided to do, because initially it was only the guys who were actually making the shoes coming to Hyderabad, we kind of changed our mentality and we were like, why not bring their entire family to Hyderabad so they can settle down here and work for us? Why don't we show them a future? So to do that, what we had done was we moved their families here. All the ladies work in my dad's company. All the kids' education was taken care of by us for the first 1 year, because that's enough for them to settle down. In Agra, only the men are allowed to work. The women are not allowed to work because they come from that system. Over here, there is nobody to judge them. Suddenly, their salary is higher and they're making more money. It took us about 2 years to 3 years for them to understand that, because even they come from a different mindset. But ever since they've understood that, it's been good so far.
How did you come across that? I mean, one is, if you look at it purely from an economics perspective, it seems like the relocation fee is pretty high.
Right.
But how did you come across that idea, and what made you go ahead with it?
I come from a house where all the ladies work. Uh, the men work, the ladies work, everyone's always working. And see, these guys make very little money in a place like Agra. They're making about 18-20,000. 18-20 is max. We already pay them a lot more here. But I also understand the cost of living in this place is high. Now, what happened when only the men were working here and the women were left there with their kids? These guys wanted to go back every 3 to 4 months to meet their family. So at one point of time, we were like, why should we send these guys there? We'll call their family here. So we'd call their family over, pay for their tickets, and we'd let them have a good time when their family was here. We'd send them to a zoo, we'd send them to NTR Park, show them Tank Bund. We would celebrate all the kids' birthdays also. So I kind of learned this through, I think, through just experience. Like, back in the day, like people worked with craftsmen as laborers. I wanted to change that perception. I wanted every person to feel like a part of something more. And which is why we try to involve all the family, because the woman is also proud of where her husband works. The kids are also proud of where their dad works. And when there is happiness in their house, the productivity increases at our workshop as well. And I've seen that happen in the recent past. In fact, whenever I go to my dad's factory and all the ladies are happy working, they'll always come up to you and say hi. And you can tell that they're happy. They have something to look forward to. In a place like Agra, they would have gotten married and they probably have a couple of kids by now, So we try to change their mentality and just make it show them a future more than anything else.
I think that's fantastic. And one point you touched upon was happiness and not calling them laborers. We have a caste system in India. And again, during our conversation, you mentioned that shoes are traditionally made by people of the lower caste. Did that affect you anytime, or your decisions, or did that affect the way artisans decided or didn't decide to come and work with you?
So artisans were always ready to work with me. Craftsmen have always been ready to work with me because they understand I love it as well. Yeah, because I'm a craftsman, irrespective of what background I come from. See, I come from a relatively well-to-do family, considering my family's been in a certain business for the last 40 years. But as someone who's been working with leather for the last 5 years, you can tell that caste and religion play a big role. I get questioned very honestly about my religion and my caste, but it doesn't really affect me, to be very honest. I'm in here because I love what I do and I love the product we make. So, but what we try and do is we try and explain. We also, when someone asks me such questions, instead of getting aggressive about it or feeling bad about it, we do explain the reasons behind all of the workings. See, traditionally, if you look at the Hindu system, right, working with animal leather was subjugated to a certain part of community, and that kind of stayed on for the longest time. It's still prevalent, but I think we're trying to change that mentality for people as well. But other than that, it's not something that I really focus on as much.
That's nice. I think that last part is really nice.
Right.
Now, we can do a couple of things. I'm just checking if there are some more questions here. If
there were some interesting questions, in fact, that I had seen.
There is one on you diversifying your products.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah. Why not bags, wallets, belts? What is the market scope in India?
Yes. So initially, when we first started, I was doing bags, belts, wallets, leather straps, anything and everything I could creatively do. I did that for the first 3 years, where there was not so much pressure to kind of run. I think I'll be very honest with everyone on this. COVID was a big full stop, and it was 2 big full stops for us over the last 2 years. Before COVID actually hit us, I had more creative freedom to do all of these other products. Now what has happened is, because of those 3 months or the 6 months of the business suddenly slowing down, you have to focus on your main business, which is the shoes. Now, if I have to start focusing on something like a bag, that's a whole other business aspect. And there are a lot of competitors and players in that market already. And I feel like I want to specifically work on that one product because I know I'm really good at this. and I let them, the other part, be taken over by people who are also good at that. Also, karigars who make shoes do not make wallets, bags, or they're completely different. It's a different education also, very honestly. The material is the same, but like I said, when I was in college in London, within the college that I was in, we had two different degrees. One degree was for shoemaking and one degree was for small leather goods, because it's a different skill altogether. I have tried in the past and I put these two skills together, but I'm happy sticking with shoes, very honestly.
Would you be happier if you didn't have to run a business and you could just make shoes at your leisure? Or do you enjoy the challenge?
So no, I think I have a lot of like passions and hobbies in life, some of them being very expensive. I love collecting watches. I love listening to good music on vinyl. I love traveling. If it were only a craft, it wouldn't be able to really pay for all my other interests in life. It's we do. The craft and the business always have to come together sometime in life. If you want to be something, if you want to achieve something, and you have certain dreams, you'll have to mix the two. But even as we have mixed the two, what we do is we still focus about say 40% of our energies on constant creative R&D, and the 60% is production. 60% is money that helps the 40% happen, which is important.
You just mentioned R&D.
Right.
I don't know the R&D spends in India in MSMEs and corporate, but I'm assuming they aren't much compared to other maybe Western countries or even Eastern countries. If you look at Japan or South Korea, you are a team of less than 10 or maybe around 10.
Right.
And 40% of your team is still invested in R&D.
Right.
Can you tell us a bit about that? Why would you not want to focus on production and maximize your revenue and instead spend 40% of your resources on R&D?
Sure. The best way to answer that question would be, we are shoemakers by the end of the day. We're not a manufacturing unit. We are shoemakers, and the reason why we call ourselves shoemakers is because only then are you associated with craft. And craft is an ever-evolving process. The minute you stop working on research and development, your craft is dead. You as a creative are dead. Because if you think there is no scope for growth, then you become stagnant as a business and a craft and as a person. So the reason why we constantly work on R&D is, first, not just for my satisfaction and for the product to improve in quality, but I want to improve the craft of my craftsmen as well. Only if their craft improves, will the quality of the product increase as well. So I think it's like a forever process. See, even shoemaking in the last 100 years has seen a big change. Shoemaking a shoe back in the day, so basically in the early 1900s, you could consider that as the finest times for shoemaking. And then the First World War and the Second World War happened. Around that time, what happened? Production had to increase. So they stopped focusing on the smaller details because they had to produce in larger quantities. Okay, so it became more mass manufactured. In the recent past, again, we have gone back to more design and detail oriented making. And if you have to make that constant evolution, right, you have to keep working on R&D. And when I say R&D, we're not just working on our shoes, we're also working on the tools that go into the making of our shoes. Because it starts, yeah.
Can we talk a bit about the tools? I think we are just getting there.
Right.
Tool makers for shoemakers.
Right.
You are a craftsman.
Right.
You need craftsmen to make your tools also?
Yes, because the product that we make is very artisanal. The kind of tools that are being used for these shoemaking processes also have to be very artisanally made.
Do you have any tools that you can show us?
I can, for sure. Do you want to bring my skiving knives and the ask Shubham also to help him. And the tools. Yeah, she's just Nirmala is just going to bring the tools out. But yes, it's very difficult to find very high quality tools in India. All the tools right now are being imported either from England, Korea, South Korea, Russia, and America. And China also. China always. I mean, China. I think the great thing about China is that it adds to your question. China mass manufactured everything, but they learned the basics of manufacturing. Now what they're doing is they're taking that knowledge and creating products that are super high end. In fact, there's so many great shoemakers based out of China. It's incredible. Yeah, that is because they've been constantly working on R&D. It's a constant evolution. But yeah, just a minute, maybe.
I'd like to plug in something here. So Tarun, if you could also touch upon, you met another craftsman. He's a metal craftsman from Hyderabad. And
the other skiving knife, yeah, that would be great because I'm just bringing out his tool as well.
Yeah. So you met another craftsman from Hyderabad,
Right.
and you both collaborated to get a tool made for you. Can you tell a bit about that? The reason I'm saying is we are creating this community of artists, and we think these creative collisions will definitely help what you're going to see Tarun talk about. And Megha will be posting a link to sort of get details of other artists, other craftspeople from the community. We have a plan to create a community. It'll probably be a WhatsApp group to start with, but WhatsApp is very instant messaging. So we are still thinking about it. But please enter your details if you want to be part of this artists and craftspeople community, and we'll definitely add you there. Over to you, Tarun.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's always nice to have this community of different craftsmen and artisans because everyone can help each other somehow or the other. Even just the sharing of knowledge is great. So yes, a very small example is this knife that I'm holding right here. So this is called a skiving knife. And it is basically used to reduce the thickness of leather. So you can see it's got an angle to it. So basically what we use that to reduce the thickness of leather where it folds and sits on it folds basically. So you don't want to create too much bulk. Now this tool, for example, I imported from Korea. It's a big company called Palo Santo. Again, they have craftsmen making each and every individual tool. Now, Saad, who happens to run Ironic, also my senior from school, also used to be very close friends. We used to be encouraged by the same arts teacher in school. He's a blacksmith based out of Hyderabad, and this is the tool he's made for me. And very honestly, in the recent past, I have been using lesser of the tool from Korea and more of the tool that Saad has given to me because I find the balance of weight more to my liking than something like this. Now it's great to have a community because if something happens to this tool, I'll have to send it all the way to Korea. But something like this, I can just talk to Saad, and Saad is more than happy to help me create something like this. And now, from what I know, Saad is making this for more other craftsmen based out of India.
Fantastic.
He's taking orders. I know someone from Chennai who's placed an order through him for this exact same tool because he contacted me about a week ago, this craftsman, after 1 year of him initially asking me this question. And he was like, is it still good for you? And even Saad messaged me. And it's an incredible tool. And it's great. I mean, it also has a lot more nicer detail. It's got like that little brass inlay, which is beautiful, which this doesn't have. They're both incredible tools, but it's always nice to have someone locally make these. Now, for an example, this is another tool. It's called a wooden slicker. So what we use we burnish the edges of leather. This I have definitely bought and got it imported from outside. But I showed this to my local craftsman, my woodmaker, and he made this in about a matter of 1 day. Now, this I had to import for almost about what's it, $25, whereas this guy would probably make it for you in 500 rupees. It's quite simple. For example, can I get the shoehorn? We actually got a lot of other things made through my local guy. So basically, you have something called a shoehorn, right? A shoehorn is basically used to put your shoe on. So you get very cheap plastic ones in the market. But my man Noor, who's my carpenter, I got about 25 of these made. And it's just so cool because it's wood, it's not plastic in the first place. So we constantly like working with craftsmen to do something very different. I also had another one on the inside. It has the Mop Inlay. So what we did was we took this. This was our first prototype. Then what we did with this prototype was we worked with someone who did Mop layout. Names is on the left hand side.
What is
Sorry.
MOP?
Mother of pearl.
Okay. Oh.
So why not make it a little fancy, right? Uh,
And you got this made in house?
yeah, we got these made in house. And yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. So here you are. It's the same thing, but we got MOPA, mother of pearl, inlaid into it. Just because why not, right? So it's always nice to work with craftsmen who can help us. And if someone is into metal work, I'm sure we can get tools made for leather craft through them. And these are tools that would serve the purpose and the need for an entire country at the moment, because there are so many craftsmen in India importing everything from outside. It's become a challenge to find these tools in-house within our country. But if there is someone to make these and make them to this level, it'll be incredible for us.
It'll be fascinating to watch all of y'all,
Right.
your team, you, Saad, other woodworkers. We have some of our team folks also on this call, working to build tools like this. Even we love doing R&D, even we love having fun. And I think this looks extremely exciting. Uh, which brings me to the next point. There are a lot of questions about business. What is the price? Do you have a website? Are people aware of handmade shoes? How much are they? Are they willing to pay for these shoes? So it's a lot related to business. So you can pick whichever question you want. And maybe you can tell us about the evolution of your business also. You talked about your business has done much better after.
More definitely. When we first started our business, without all the R&D involved, we didn't have a fancy product, but we had a product which still was true to its ideology or the vision of what we wanted to be. It's been a constant evolution since. So for example, this is one of the earlier shoes that we had made, okay, back in the day, about 4 or 5 years ago. It's very bulky. So we started at about 8 to 10,000 rupees. That was the starting price for our shoes. So some of these went for that price. But what we do right now is a lot more refined. It's a lot more sleek. It's a lot more well finished. We have attention to detail on the way the heel of the shoe is cut. So if you notice, it has an angle, it has a taper, everything is angled. The finish on the bottom is much finer. So the pricing of a shoe is definitely gone up because we worked on our craft. So right now we're retailing at anywhere between 70 to 20,000 and 20 and upwards for boots and things like that. So all the boots are right above my head right there. Yes, as a business, it's been tough. Initially, the first 2 years were just trying to get customers. And I'll be very honest, we were only selling about, say, 10 to 15 pairs of shoes in a month. But we were very sure of what we were doing as a craft and with the product. So, and we have never done excessive marketing or unnecessary marketing. All the marketing that's been done is organic through customers and through people I know personally. And right now, as of now, we do about, say, 50 to 70 pairs of shoes every month. And again, everything is only done because of organic marketing. Now, how has the marketing happened? And why do people buy products from us, even though they're expensive? People buy products from us because we maintain that relationship with the customer. They can always come to the store and expect to find me, a member of my team, ready to have a conversation with them. If there is a problem with the product, because it is handmade, there will be small products. I'm saying 1 out of 10 shoe might have a small product. We always aim to rectify these mistakes and improve the quality and fit for that particular customer. So keeping that conversation alive has been the best way to build my brand. And I think is the best way to build any brand that wants to deal with luxury. Just throwing the word luxury around does not make it a luxury brand. It's the experience that comes with the product. So yes, we do not have a website because we prefer to do all our sales directly over a phone call or through our store. And we ship across the world, across India. If a customer faces an issue with the product, like I said earlier, he can always send the product to us. We will rectify any mistake. Sometimes, if required, we remake the shoe also before we send it back to them. So the fit is the most important, and the customer has to be happy. Only then are me and my team happy, very honestly. And I think that's really helped us with the way we've built ourselves as a brand.
Do you use any, what are the materials you use, for example, in the shoe that you just showed us?
That's nice. Yeah, because someone also asked, how is the heel made? What is the material? I can actually show you all a couple of examples. Just give me 1 second. I apologize.
Yeah.
So I've got 4 different prototypes or the different parts of the making process right in front of me. So like I said, all of our shoes are made only and only using leather. We do not use anything that is not leather in the making of our shoes, unless someone wants a fabric shoe, which we can also do. So right from the insole of our shoe, which is the inside of the shoe that you don't even get to see on a regular shoe, we use leather. The leather is molded onto that leather insole. Then, like I said, we do a hand welted process. So what that means is, this is called a leather welt. We stitch all of these 3 things together. And then we use cork as a filler in between, a little metal object. That's the only thing that's not leather on this product, a little metal object. We then put a full leather sole shoe, leather onto the bottom of the shoe. So without the heel, it looks like this, the red part. And then the heel is built with individual pieces of leather. So it's called a stacked leather heel. So basically, we do not use anything but leather in the making of our shoes.
And is there any curing of the shoe, any heat press?
Everything is done by hand, very honestly. So we only have like 1-2 machines, but those are only like sanding machines. Also, an interesting question, one with the fit, but I'll get to that fit right after this. So again, we also hand paint all of our leather. So for example, this shoe that you're seeing right now, the 2-tone finish, was actually done by me this morning using a paintbrush and dye. Wow. So what happens in that process is every shoe is painted to the customer's requirement. So the number of colors that we can do for a customer are endless. Also, what happens because of this process is if the customer wants to change this yellow shoe to a dark brown or a black later on in life, he can bring the shoe back to me and I can change the finish of the shoe as well.
Someone's asking about the thread.
Yes, another interesting question by Simran. So basically, how do you deal with weird shaped feet that lie outside the normal footprint, such as a wide foot? We do take every customer's measurement when they come down to our store, and we make the shoe accordingly. So we take their measurements and actually carry that onto the actual mold that we eventually will use to make that shoe. So no changes are made after the shoe is being made. Everything is made before the shoe is made. And for customers who are not based out of Hyderabad, it's a slight challenge, but we can always send the shoe for a fitting. What we do is we send the shoe for a fitting. If he says it's a little tight, because generally with the width, this is the widest part of the foot, and this is where the challenge is. We can always increase the width and send the shoe back to the customer because it is handmade.
What do you do? Do you face challenges when people have when people's foot shapes are not normal, or is it an advantage for them to come to you?
The thing is, Anand, nobody has a normal foot. There is no set foot. Everyone's different. It's like everyone always has a stronger arm, stronger hand. You'll be right-footed. You'll either be right-handed or left-handed. It's the same with your feet. You'll have one foot that's big, one foot that's small. They'll never be the same. And there is no set standard for a foot. So we actually enjoy that process. We're like 2 mm, we have to increase 2 mm on the width, 2 mm here, 2 mm there. And for us, it's also the anxiety. It's not the anxiety, but we look forward to that day when that customer comes for the fitting, because it's a direct reflection of whether our fitting was right in the first place. So it is definitely fun.
Okay, I think there are a lot of students also on this webinar. I'll ask you a few questions on education. And while I just write down those questions, someone has asked about the name Oblum. It's eponymous, right? It's your name.
It's my family name. It's actually, I'm Telugu. I'm Oblum Palli cut short is Oblum. All my family businesses are called Oblum. So yeah, Oblum it's been.
Very nice. So the question is, you are a bespoke craftsman in India, one of the handful in India probably, but you had the privilege of studying in Italy, studying in the UK. Many people might not have that privilege. Many people might want to pursue this, but they are probably still, I mean, they can only afford an education in India, or it could be any problem, right? It's not necessarily monetary. What would you tell them if they want to pursue this as a passion/career?
I have met students from different colleges pursuing leathercraft or something to do with design. Anand, I think I had an end goal. I had a vision before I went to college. I wanted to do something of a very high level. I always wanted to start something that was luxury, something that was done the right way, which is why I wanted to go to colleges abroad. But if I wanted to study something like a product design and development, right, I would be quite happy to go to an NID also. It's very important to know what you want to be eventually, because then you will focus your time in any space that you are and get the most out of it to finally get to that vision. So, for example, like I said, my manager, Shubham, had no education, formal education in shoemaking, leathercraft, nothing. He actually wasn't even working or doing anything. He found my craftsman on a train, eventually found his way to my studio, worked with me for about 6 to 8 months, left because of COVID, but then went and joined a college in Agra for a year, learned shoemaking, learned English, came back, and he handles the business for me now. His sister is still studying, and day before yesterday, she won a bronze medal for Best Design Shoe Design Award on the national level. Apparently, the winner is going to Shanghai. She came third. She's not going to Shanghai, but we're so proud of her. In fact, her brother is so proud just sitting here. I think the information is available everywhere right now. We're living in a time where even everything is put on the internet. We've actually done a lot of R&D just looking at information based out of the internet. Students, I think, need to have focus on what they want to do eventually. I've seen a lot of like kids from NIFT and other colleges as well. What I do, I've seen like a lot of people want to do design, but they don't know what part of design they want to get into. So I feel like kids should take some time to understand what they want to do. And then all the colleges in India are good. You don't need to go to an Italy, because I could have gone to Chennai and also learned the same skill, but I also was a little more oriented towards like fashion initially, which is why I went to fashion school. But after coming back from fashion school, I realized that I am more craft focused than the fashion aspect of it.
And do you take interns? Do you take, I mean, if a student wants to learn the craft, would you have time to work with them? Would you have the space?
Yes, we've conducted multiple workshops. We actually conduct workshops every 2 or 3 months where we accept people from all walks of life to come and learn leathercraft as a craft. And when we teach them the craft, we actually use the same tools that we use. So they can actually take this up as a hobby, and it can eventually turn into a business also. Because see, all craft can turn into a business if that's the main motive. But all craft can remain a craft if it only wants to be a craft. And very honestly, the shoemaking is something that I learned in college. But the small leather goods is something I learned through YouTube, because I didn't have a business after I came back. So I learned that through YouTube, and then that's how we started building the business. But on this chat right now, I know there is someone called Suyesh Honra who also asked me a question. He said, "Thanks for the inspiration." I know he's in a college in FDDI in Gujarat. He's been in touch with us for the last 1.5 year, just wanting to learn through us, and he's actually coming and joining us next month as an intern.
Hey, congratulations, Suresh.
Yeah, So it's, if you have the interest, we're always open. In fact, in the last 4-5 years, we've taken kids from the street, taught them the craft in 3 months, and they become a part of our team. In fact, one of our member on our team right now was someone who did not know anything. He didn't even pass his 12th grade. We took him on. I taught him the craft. He was working with us for a year and a half or two. Then he left for some time, but he's back with me again now, working directly under Shubham.
So if kids, not kids, I mean, we are not old, right? We are quite young. So if people studying want to learn more, I think, like you said, information is available online, and you are available if they want to talk to you. There are a couple of questions. Someone has raised their hand. Megha, can we unmute? Oh, it's Upsar. Upsar is at T-Works. Can you unmute Upsar? Or Upsar, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I have done that.
Hey, hi. So it was amazing listening to you, especially talk about the craft that I've always been fascinated about. So I have a couple of questions. So firstly, like you told, you're interested in watchmaking as well. And we know how watchmaking is a thing of heritage. Like it's mostly Swiss makers like Vacheron Constantin or Patek Philippe. And similar thing, we have similar problem with shoemaking, like how you have John Lobb and maybe Camina or Garson or some other companies that are mainly based off of London or UK, some based off Spain. But how do you see this craft being a thing of India, or maybe a few years down the line, since we have like amazing craftsmen in India? Do you think it is possible that we can become a key player in the world market, or at least companies like you, bespoke shoemakers like you, become world players rather than companies with heritage?
That's a great question. I want to be recognized in the world for sure. That's the dream for Oblum, which is why I, like Anand also said earlier, which is why 40% of our team is only working on R&D. We do not have the heritage of 50, 80, 100 years. But if you have a product that can match up to a heritage brand, then you've made it, right? So the products are still the same. You're just subtracting the 100 years that they probably have and I don't have.
Do you have customers from outside India?
We do have customers from outside of India, and also a great question, because we are being recognized by customers outside of India also right now. So we have regular customers from Germany. This man's been supporting us for the last 4 years. He'll just order a shoe and we send it off to Germany, and he's happy. And every time he's in India, he's like happy to wear our shoes to our store. We've had customers. We actually export a lot of shoes to America as well. A lot of customers there. But yeah, I mean, it will take time for us to create a product that will hold its own amongst the global best. And that'll only take time. Maybe in another 2-3 years, I'm thinking that's the plan for us. For us to be able to create a product that is recognized both for not just construction, but also for unique design detail. For example, I actually would like to showcase to you all a product that I feel like could hold against the global best, because nobody has made this product. So we've taken Indian craft and mixed European traditional craft and made a different kind of a shoe. So Shubham, under mojri hai na? Full embroidered mojri, black. So like I said, a mojri, right? A mojri is a very Indian shoe. So what we've done with a mojri is we've taken a mojri, which is traditionally an Indian style of shoe. We're working with someone who's a third generation embroidery craftsman. So they only do embroidery. But embroidery, I've never seen anyone do embroidery on leather. Or even if they do, they're not doing it at the kind of quality that I want to do. And we're doing hand-welted shoes. So if you put all the three together, you're coming up with something on the lines of this. So we are trying to create our own identity also by taking in different crafts, local crafts, and putting them into our shoes. So something like this, which is a hand-welted shoe made out of calf skin that I've imported from Italy, but then using embroidery that is very local. to our country. We've tried to create something very unique. I feel like a product like this can be recognized globally.
Very interesting. You are sort of having a fusion of two traditional crafts, and not only traditional in India, I mean traditional across the world.
Right. That's our answer to that question, very honestly.
And where is the person who's doing the embroidery? He's
from Hyderabad. He's from Hyderabad as well. Yeah. We work with a lot of guys based out of Hyderabad. I love going to the old city and finding these little nooks and corners and finding these craftsmen who can like help us work on this craft.
There are a few questions about the thread that you use for stitching. That is
it's quite simple. Basically, we use it's a standard 3-ply nylon thread. This was very technical, this question, but yeah, 3-ply nylon thread for the upper, but we use cotton for the stitching of our soles. It's a waxed cotton thread that we make in-house. So we take thread and then we wax it using beeswax and other waxes put together to make it stronger. Because if it's not done, then when we're stitching, it will break because it is cotton and it is only fiber.
And the thread used in the embroidery, can you show that?
Oh yeah, this is called zari and zardozi. That's what it's metal thread. It's incredible, the detail on this. It's stunning. I never thought I would enjoy a shoe like this, but once we made this, it really blew my brain. It's super rich. This is not something anyone in Europe would be able to do, very honest.
Yeah.
I think not on leather at least.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, I think, Megha, do we have time or are we out?
We just have a couple of, we are already 10 minutes above though.
Okay, it was a 1 hour thing. Okay, sorry. It's good you told me because I thought it's 1.5 hours. Okay, now there are a couple of things. First is, Tarun, we are going to continue these webinars and we have a series that we have planned. Can you tell the audience more about what you have planned for a series like this?
So firstly, thank you so much for giving me and Oblum the opportunity and for choosing us to be a part of this. It's very interesting to connect with similar-minded people who want to put craft on the forefront and introduce craft and other craftsmen to the world. So T-Works and Anand have been very kind in terms of setting up the new space where they're trying to introduce other craftsmen and the different aspects of craft. So basically what we are planning to do with the next couple of sessions is not just talking about leather as a material that is used in shoemaking, but talking to different craftsmen who work with leather in various different ways that you would probably never meet. For example, wouldn't it be interesting for you all to hear the same conversation between someone who tans the leather and me? Because a leather tanner would have a completely different ideology and a different way of thought than to someone who's using the end product of his industry. Or for example, someone who makes tools like Saad. Saad's understandings of tool making and why we are using him to make our tools. So basically, through this whole process, we're trying to create an environment where various craftsmen and various crafts can come together and kind of create a great environment for something like this to thrive.
And we'll be sharing links to keep folks informed about future webinar series. And please enter your, you can subscribe, like and subscribe to those posts. And finally, Tarun, I've spoken a bit about T-Works. I should. So T-Works is India's largest prototyping center. Let me see if I can show folks an image of T-Works. Just give me a minute. I don't know whether a lot of people can.
I can share the screen.
Can you guys see this? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, Anand, it's visible.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so this is the building that's coming up. This is a render, by the way. but we are quite close to this. This is a 78,000 square foot prototyping center coming up in Hyderabad. This is coming up a block away from IKEA. Everyone knows where IKEA is in Hyderabad. So we are quite close to IKEA in high-tech city. It's a 4.79 acre campus. It's India's largest prototyping center, the largest outside the US, actually, one of the biggest in the world. And this facility will have not only metalworking, woodworking, pottery, textile. We'll be working with Tarun to set up a space for leatherworking for students and entrepreneurs, startups to come and do R&D, to come and dabble with leather also. We also have electronics, what we believe will be India's first PCB fabrication center for prototyping, where you can make your electronic boards, you can make your metal enclosures, you can finish your metal. You can pretty much walk in with an idea and walk out with an industry grade physical product. And the reason we want to work with both engineers, designers, crafts people also is so that those creative collisions take place, and they can all take place under one roof. You can find everything you need to build what you want to build inside T-Works. Let me just see if there is more stuff. This is another version of the building. This is where we are located, in the heart of the city. Of course, T-Works, the entire plan was a 2.4 lakh square foot facility, or rather the plan is for a 2.4 lakh facility. This is the first building we are coming up with, a 78,000 square foot phase one. And if you go on this road, that is, I think near, it's on the Inorbit road, sort of perpendicular to it. You can see our facility coming up. So it's a prototyping center. We work with startups, makers, innovators, craftspeople, even corporate. We have a lot of corporate who are also working with us to do R&D and to do product development. And we hope that this will become a center for creativity, for innovation, for anyone who wants to explore and experiment, not only in India, but just like Tarun, we want to be one of the best in the world. Having said that, Tarun, if anyone wants to reach you, if anyone wants to buy a bespoke pair of shoes, if anyone wants to contact you, what is the best way?
So we have a very active Instagram page. We're called Oblum on our on Instagram. You can also reach us at our store. Our store is based out of Kavuri Hills. You can look up Oblum on Google Maps and it'll show you the way to Oblum. There's also a contact number on the Instagram page, which is directly take you to Nirmala's phone, who handles all our customers and client calls. These are the three different ways, but otherwise you can also find me around town, very honestly. I'm very active and social. You can always come up, say hi to me, and I'm always happy to have a conversation with people outside.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tarun. And of course, a word for Megha, who has organized this event, this webinar. She's been the person behind it all. We just showed up one day prior and on the day of the webinar. So thanks, Megha, for organizing it. Thank you so much for all the audience who stayed even beyond the hour. And thank you for your questions and your interest. And we hope to see you all in our future webinar series as well. Megha, over to you.
Very interesting session, Tarun. And Anand, thank you for actually putting out the questions so well that, I mean, I did a poll and everyone said that they loved the conversation, the way it is happening. And one of the reasons could be that it was so authentic and honest. And thank you to both of you. So I request everyone to be in touch. I have added the links here for Oblum plus T-Works as well. Stay in touch, be part of the community. We'll be coming up with a couple of more webinars. So, and I really hope that it is adding value to you as well. So always up for feedback and anything you think that we should be talking more about. I'll be happy to take all those suggestions. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Tarun.
Bye.